for those of you who don't know what Crown Commercial Service is, and I know a lot of people don't, I'm just going to give you a very brief run through on what we do. We are the biggest, one of the biggest, actually I think the biggest public procurement organisations in Europe, and we are an executive agency of the Cabinet Office. Some of us are Cabinet Office employees, me included, and my team, most of my team work for the Crown Commercial Service. We lead on, quite importantly I think, we lead on developing and implementing UK's public sector procurement policies, and that's something that we took over from the Cabinet Office central core teams about 3 years ago, and we deliver the government's commercial policy priorities. We also help organisations across the whole of the public sector, not just in central government and the central civil estate, find the right commercial solutions. And we actually spend, and our customers spend, about £12 billion of taxpayers' money every year on our products and services that CCS have set up. So it's a considerable amount of money we spend and we purchase on behalf of the taxpayers. And actually, some of the categories that we spend it in, I think people will be quite surprised, and I'll talk a bit in a minute about where we focus our attention. I think our three sort of key strategy priorities within CCS, first of all, around strengthening the UK economy through effective policy delivery, maximising commercial benefits, and that's not always about savings, although people would have you believe that we're all about savings. We are there to try and get the best value for money out of the products we purchase. But by focusing on our customers' needs, it's about actually understanding what the customer wants and bringing our suppliers and our buyers together in the right way so that we can get the right products out for them. Oh, sorry. Just a little bit about how we're set up. Again, very high level. CCS is split up into 4 pillars of delivery. Starting over on the right-hand side, corporate solutions, as you'd expect to see, fleet, financial travel, financial services, office, marketing and contact centres. So it's all about the corporate environment. Our technology pillar looks after all of our network services, technology products, licensing, cloud and digital. People, as you would imagine, looks after professional services, consultancy, workforce, employee services. And where I'm interested in and what this is about today is around the buildings pillar, which focuses essentially on workplace and estates, which is my responsibility. So all the estates, professional services, workplace, FM specifically, and all of our furniture, fixtures and fittings type frameworks fall within me. And then I have a colleague who looks after utilities and fuels, where we buy about £2.5 billion worth of energy on behalf of the public sector through our own trading desk. And we're just starting up a construction capability very, very, very shortly, which will bring in much more of a construction capability into government so we can actually do more high value and large scale construction activity for the public sector. I'm going to just talk very briefly about our context and really what we're trying to do here within the marketplace. We are actually we are setting up an online digitized solution to buy FM across the public sector. We are aiming to increase efficiency in the buying process for the users of our estate. And that's efficiencies for the buyer, efficiencies for our suppliers in terms of the time it takes to tender and how they actually need to set themselves up to deliver services back into the public sector. Procurement processes and time to market and the cost to serve, reducing the cost to serve both for our buyers and our suppliers. And actually, sometimes people don't like to hear it, but trying to reduce the reliance on external experts. Because at the moment, we have hundreds, if not thousands, of organisations who rely on bringing in professional services consultants to purchase FM for them. And generally, for the lower value buyers, that means actually eating into any commercial benefits and savings they would have made on doing the deal for what is actually quite standard service. We do have a drive to deliver savings for the government in spending. There's a very, very tight fiscal envelope for the past 6 to 8 years, and it's been very tough. Our departments and our public sector buyers are under immense pressure to reduce running costs, both fixed and variable. There's a huge amount of pressure. You've seen it all in the news over the last 4 or 5 years. Departments having 25% of their budget cut, up to 25%. Some have been protected, although probably not protected in some cases, in various categories. And so there's a huge emphasis on whether we're getting value for the money we spend, and actually how we're purchasing those the services that we get, particularly in property. There's pressures to rationalise the estate, and that's through either a restructure of our footprint. We're bringing in various initiatives around to assist in reducing the footprint around the One Public Estate programme, the Government Hub programme, where we're actually going to move a large proportion of our office accommodation out of hundreds, if not thousands, of small leasehold and freehold properties into 23 major location hubs and about 200 to 300 maybe mini hubs across the country. And that will clearly release a huge amount of capital back into the system as we release a number of freeholds. The central civil estate, if you think about the context of our estate for a minute, we operate on about, we call our estate 4 different things. We have a central civil estate, which occupies about 8 million square metres of property, and we spend about £2.5 billion worth of spend on FM per year on that 8 million square metres of property. About 3 million of that, just over 3 million, is freehold. About 2.5 million is leasehold, and about another 2.5 million is tied up in PFIs. So some of the spend we can get at, some of the deals we do are unfortunately locked into 20-year PFIs, some longer. We then have the wider civil estate, so we spend about 2.5 billion in the central civil estate. The wider civil estate covers the likes of courts, prison estate, and a number of other agencies and departments within the estate that are not centrally managed. And that adds another about 2 billion onto the target, onto the spend per annum. We then have what we call the government estate, which is everything else. It's the MOD estate. It includes the NHS. You add on, if you include NHS, another about 12 billion a year. And then we have the wider public sector, which encompasses a lot about the education sector, local authorities, and you can add anything between 4 and 6 billion onto that total. So in general, and it is pretty vague, and the numbers are vague because the way we calculate is unfortunately imperfect. We spend probably around about between 20 and 22 billion in the public sector on FM every year. Substantial amount of money. I know there's a colleague here from the higher education sector, and I suppose, to put it into context, I think the latest report says the higher education sector spends about 2.5 billion a year on FM, and about another 3 billion on capital spending. Schools in England and Wales spend 2.5 billion a year just on FM for schools in every year. So there's a huge amount of work that we have to do to bring some control on our FM spending within this within our estate. I'm talking today really about the civil estate, and that's the central civil estate and the wider civil estate, where we are actually controlled by a quasi-mandate, and our departments do have to adhere to a central purchasing control, which actually says that they're not mandated to use frameworks as such, but they are mandated to consider the use of centralised purchasing and to rule it out through business case processes. And it's not always the right thing to do, but they do get the opportunity to take those business cases to the Cabinet Office and to the ministers. So everything is in scope. Everything we do is in scope for the entire public sector. What we're trying to do here with this digital platform I'm going to talk through is actually bring something in that probably touches about 16 to 18% of the current public sector spend profile per year, which equates to about £2 billion. We currently, within CCS, actually only get about, our current projection for next year is bringing in about £1 billion, and that has taken probably about 2 or 3 years of hard work across government to bring all of those different contracts that departments have had into scope for a centralised purchasing framework. So lots more to do. The outline objectives for this. We need to bring our buyers and suppliers closer together at the point of delivery, and that's one of the key drivers for us. We currently have about 20 odd, I would say, in the central civil estate, about 20 odd FM suppliers delivering our services. We're aiming to bring about 160 suppliers into the new marketplace via an online portal, and we're aiming to allow our customers, our buyers, to get access to our suppliers through a guided match process, so that actually they can purchase geographically. The idea is we want to bring the right supplier with the right skill set together with whatever customer it is, whether it's a primary school based in Warwick or it's a local authority based in the Northwest, to bring the right suppliers with the right capabilities together with the right buyers, and then set up a contract from there based on what I would call simplification of pricing and performance processes. We have about 3,000, on the last count, about 3,000 different FM contracts in the central civil estate, FM-related contracts. And all of those 3,000 contracts operate under different terms and conditions, different specifications, different pricing models, different performance, KPI processes. If it could be different, they make it different. And you know what? The only one thing that's constant in all of that is they're all delivering cleaning, building fabric maintenance, and M&E generally, and a bit of security bolted onto the back of it. And they're not doing anything very special in those estates, really. Some of the estates are very special. We do some quite nifty stuff in some of it. We have clearly we've got a nuclear estate. We have a defence estate that does some very special stuff. But you know what? Actually, the assets that they maintain aren't very special. I use an example of the Ministry of Defence called targetry, something different. And actually, targetry in some instances is a propane burner stuck in the middle of a field that something hits. And you know, it's not actually a special propane burner, it's just a propane burner. It might be a bit special to get to it and to remove the debris, but actually when you put it out there, that's all it is. So we do need to get to a standard set of services, a standard set of specifications, and a standard set of terms and conditions that everyone can use. When we're talking about simplification, an example I would give on simplification is we currently use NEC 3, which for the last framework has worked well for us in terms of the contracts we've let were all high value. So in the main, we've let about $1.5 billion of business through that contract. And it was great for high value complex contracts. Less so for our low value customers. For a school based in Warwick, a primary school based in Warwick, who's got a spend of about, between £500,000 and £1 million a year, an NEC 3 contract, term service contract, is not the right model to use. And at the moment, and we've done a lot of market research and engagement on this, there isn't actually a standard form of contract out there that could be used very simply to do direct award, £500,000 worth of business, just doing some cleaning and maintenance in a local primary school, and at the other end of the scale, £500 million a year worth of Ministry of Defence FM, hard FM services. And there's nothing there that does both. So the idea behind the simplification process that we've gone through is within government, we've looked at the standard terms and conditions, and we've created a new standard terms and conditions document that government will adopt for all centralised purchasing in the future. First one to use it will be FM. We've been about 7 or 8 months developing it. And the idea is on the terms, there'll be around about 13 pages of core terms. And there'll be a number of, the other difference, I suppose, is within our frameworks. The core terms are core across framework and call-off. In the past, we've had a framework contract backed off by a number of call-off contracts, and there were 2 different contracts. And the terms were different, and then we had to spend all kinds of time making the 2 talk together, and then making them talk to the specifications. And we've kept a lot of lawyers in holidays, I think, it's fair to say, over the past 10, 15 years. So the idea is we've created a document that is standard across framework and call-off, core terms supplemented by a number of schedules. So actually, for low-value contracts, your school in Warwick can actually use a 13-page set of core terms and a couple of schedules, and it could actually end up being about a 24-page contract document, which to the school secretary that buys that service is still probably complicated, but it's not as complicated as the 300- or 400-page NEC term service contract we've been given them to now, which has put them off. So generally what happens is our lower scale value customers will then either try and circumvent the OJU process and purchase just under the OJU threshold, or they'll use another form of contracting. The amount of times, I suppose, I've spoken to people in the wider public sector who've said, you know, in schools, a school governor will set up a contract and will use his either the firm he worked for in the past or a relative of them. And that happens, you know, there are 23,500 schools in England and Wales. Not all of them are in multi-academy trusts, and not all of them are academies. So they, you know, if you just take in the schools example, the level of competence in terms of buying FM, they're spending money on FM, they're keeping schools safe. The level of competence sometimes in purchasing that is actually hugely disparate from at both ends of the scale. Large academy trusts, yes, they're buying well. Some of the small schools need the help and support that we hopefully can bring them. Was there a question? Just
I was just going to say, so all the core terms are signed up by the suppliers, we don't need renegotiation about them. What do you do about suppliers that don't perform?
What do we do? Currently, well, I can answer the question two ways. Currently, we find it very difficult to do anything because currently our terms don't make it easy for us to terminate or suspend. They don't make it easy for us to step in. And they don't make it easy to do much other than performance manage them and work with them and re-let the contract.
So you can't eject them from the CCS framework altogether?
We will be able to now. There are going to be there are a new set of schedules in the core terms which actually allow us to suspend and remove suppliers from the framework on performance basis or actually on any basis that the authority deems appropriate. So we can remove them, we can suspend and remove them from contracts, and we can step in on contracts in the future.
So with Vine FM, is there a standard FM Bible of services that is recognition, even for complex projects?
Yeah, so what we've actually done is created I suppose to take it a little bit back, the idea is this is all going to be online. So everything we've done, terms and conditions, specifications, is modularized. There will be a standard set of mandatory services that all suppliers must deliver. And then there'll be a set of non-mandatory services that suppliers will select based on their ability and capability, and they'll be tested at framework level on delivering those services. So there is now a standard set of government FM services. There are 140 different lines or modules of service. And those services will be packaged up in bundles. So there'll be modular discounts based on a number of services in a package, so cleaning packages. So there are now a standard set of service specifications and standards to deliver each of the services.
And are they all price booked, or can you negotiate price?
So all of the mandatory services will be priced at framework as maximums. All of the on-costs and various other, REBA stage type project works will be all capped. And at framework, at call-off, the contracting authorities and the suppliers can then bid down from those caps in competition. The idea is they go through a guided match, or they will be going through a guided match on the system based on location and competency and the ability to deliver the service. That will then come down to a number of suppliers who will then be asked to, they'll be given more information about the offer. They'll be asked to then self-select themselves in or out, whether they want to continue. And then we'll run a standard competition at the back end to get the price back down to where it needs to be. I suppose I'm going to go on to it in a sec. One of the other key things on this is that we're going to be assessing innovation and value add for the first time. Government generally just gets down to the lowest price and doesn't talk about what value the supplier and the individual proposal can bring to that customer and to that buyer. This time, we're applying a social value balance scorecard to the evaluation method. We're applying face-to-face discussions, presentations between the buyer and the customer, and we're applying a competition down from the framework maximums to make sure that price is actually covered as well.
And if you negotiate down to price cap, is that public information on CCS or is it confidential?
So the OJU is going out for this in the end of the year. So it will all, once we have the framework landed, all the suppliers' rates will be publicly available. And all.
If you negotiate, so that take price cap. You get three bidders, you manage to get a much better price. Will that final price be public to CCS framework users, or is it confidential between the buyer and seller?
Yes, you will. All the contract prices are notified on Contracts Finder. It's all publicly available. So every time a public contract is let, the value of the contract is placed on Contract Finder. What you can't do is interrogate down to the services to see, because that's commercially sensitive information, to see how much they were charging for cleaning, how much they were charging for M&E, because that would unfortunately breach confidentiality. So you can't get into the detail, but you can certainly see how much. So if you were bidding, and if the 3 bidders were bidding, they would get a recommendation report now, which says essentially this is where you ranked, this is how you scored. They can actually work the price out anyway based on the percentages of ranking and how the score is applied. So we tell them where they scored, we tell them how they scored it on quality, and we tell them the overall price. We can't tell them the detail under that price because that is commercially sensitive.
So is this based on a fixed price?
It's a
What is the price?
So it's a basic, yeah, sorry. So we're going to have a couple of options. There will be fixed price for when people want fixed price, and we're introducing a target price mechanism into that as well, where we can use gain share proposals. The idea to think around this is that our customers, our buyers are telling us that our frameworks are too restrictive, and actually the way we operate limits their ability to negotiate with the suppliers and to get the best possible deal. Some of them say they want target price, some of them want gain share initiatives brought in, and at present, the current contracting landscape doesn't allow them to do that unless they go through an OJU process. So we are introducing a target price module and a fixed price module into the pricing. Where target price is used to take the point, we will revert back to traditional competition on rates because there would be a different evaluation process for target price.
And how do you go with the concept of risk? So say you're a contractor, FM contractor, they'll do a all-inclusive, take all the risk on board themselves, as opposed to one that actually, I'll pay a fixed price for every single job you do, although it's scale risk.
Yeah.
How does it cope with that?
So there's I suppose I was mentioning to Steve earlier on, I did a 3-hour presentation on this the other day to 250 suppliers, and I could probably go into the detail on that. There are options based on risk. There'll be an inclusive repair threshold type approach, which will be staged at different levels. There will be a tiered approach, so tier 1 low value contractors will have to sign up to lower levels of indemnity and insurance. Tier 2 in the middle band will be higher, and tier 3 will be the maximum level. So the risk is already priced into their pricing and into their framework rates. And then we will only down select suppliers based on the value of the contract. So if you're an SME and you've only signed up to deliver certain elements of risk and insurance and liability, then you won't be offered an opportunity if the requirement is for a much higher level. Yeah, helps.
What degree of choice will there be for people who are wishing to purchase any service? I mean, how many companies are likely to be available to select from?
So at the top end, there will be between 150 and 175 suppliers, geographically based around the country. About 25 of those are expected to be national suppliers who can deliver everything we need. About 50 will be expected to be geographical and deliver everything we need in large geographical areas. And then there'll be about 75 to 100 spaces, which will be predominantly focused at SMEs, predominantly focused at delivering mandatory core services in areas of the country based on a 63 region structure, which I'm going to come on to in a sec. So, yes, I mean, there will be choice. I think the point is, at the moment, we're giving our customers no choice. We're giving them a choice of 10. Few of them are out the market, a few are in distress, a few decide not to bid. And we're having opportunities where only one or two of the bidders on one of our big lots is actually interested in tendering. So there's a lot of work that we've needed to go through to figure out exactly how we can structure the lots to get you, if you're a buyer, to the right supplier and the right supplier bid list. So there will be choice, and there'll be an opportunity to test that choice further down the line, but certainly it's going to be much more choice than we currently give.
Sorry, we've just got 5 minutes left, so
yep.
Okay,
I'll just so essentially moving swiftly on, we're moving from a national framework contract to a framework that includes 63 regions. Essentially, just to take the point on choice, suppliers can indicate their ability to deliver in any of the regions and must be able to provide us with evidence to substantiate their claims to deliver those services. And then this will be used as part of the down selection process to make sure that if you've got an opportunity down in London, for instance, where there are something like 7 or 8 sub-regions, that the right suppliers who can deliver those services in that area are actually selected down in that process. Most of this, if there is, one of the key elements of this is we're enabling direct award for FM. Now, yes, it will be at framework maximum rates with discounts already built in at tendered rates. But I suppose the problem we've got is at the moment we're spending, for instance, to take an example, we spent £400,000-500,000 a year on a small cleaning and maintenance contract for a single site. 250,000 actually, what the last one was. The buyer, because they didn't have experience and skill in buying FM, went out and spent £35,000 on consultants. So actually, the benefit of using any framework was eaten away by the fact that they'd spent any saving they'd made on consultancy fees. They then had to bring someone in to help them manage the contract because they don't really understand how to manage NEC contracts. So all the time we're eating into the commercial benefits that we're getting. So actually, sometimes it's the right thing to do to allow customers to select tendered, commercially competed rates at maximums up to a certain threshold, which is going to be about £1 to £1.5 million in total contract value, so that they can actually get to the suppliers quicker without having to go through lengthy, sometimes 3-4 month procurement processes to get to the right supplier at the right time for the right rate. So sometimes direct awards will be the right thing to do. So we're enabling that, and that will be done via an online system where actually, these days everyone does everything online. So the intention will be that everything up to a certain point will be done online, and for direct award it can all be done in an online system with a set of very clear instructions. And actually we should be gaining the information we need to do the award without having to explicitly go and ask the customer for it, ask the buyer for it. So they'll set up a profile and they'll go through a process. And they will say, for instance, we're working with DFE on this, they'll say, I'm a primary school, and up will pop a DFE-sponsored primary school package that will say, the Department for Education has already sanctioned that this is a normal primary school package that you can select from. They're the standard services, and they're the things that you would normally be expected to buy. So we can start off with some standardisation, and that goes across the board. We are developing the same things for central government buyers. So for things like cleaning, there doesn't need to be 3,000 specifications for cleaning, because what happens is someone walks in with a hoover and cleans a room to whatever big standard it is. But there are 3,000 specifications out there for doing just that one thing. So there has to be some form of standardization. Having it online allows us to do that, because they then can see what they're buying up front and then be able to tweak and change it if they need to. Any more questions?
We've got a couple of minutes left, so it's really interesting, like I say.
Yeah.
So it's a complete change. Sort of, I've worked in private property sector, and the public sector, it's a big challenge. Total change. Yeah, it's a totally different way of working for government. I've put some stuff over there on your left hand side around how that main marketplace will be lotted, and just to give you an idea of the values. The idea of having a short form set of terms and conditions and a direct award capability on an online platform is just something that's never been done. It's actually never been done globally, as far as we know. And when we speak to our big suppliers who operate across boundaries, and some of them have said you are really pushing the boundary of what has been done in FM at the moment. Doesn't necessarily all have to go through digital. There is a definite cut-off point where something becomes complex enough to warrant it being run as a normal procurement. But actually, even then, if I've got a £30 million contract, I can get to a certain point, I can be given the terms and conditions, the specifications, the performance model, and the pricing model already pre-populated. And then I can get to market quicker. I can create a set of evaluation questions and award questions, all standard. Pick from, if you don't want to, you can pick from a set of pre-qualified ones that we've used. And actually get to market very quickly and in a much more agile way. And that's where we're trying to get to on this, is to assist people to get to market quicker and to get more commercial benefit out of the procurement process.